In October, 122 inmates at Abolongo Prison in Oyo State escaped after gunmen attacked the facility. And this is after 200 inmates escaped Kaba Prison in Kogi State in September. Not forgetting that security operatives also aborted an attempted jailbreak at Benin Prison. Today, like we said earlier, we're going to be discussing jailbreak. And to discuss the issue on ground, we actually have Francis Enobore. He's the Comptroller of Nigerian Correctional Services, and he's in charge of public relations. You're welcome to the studio, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, you know, with this recent jailbreaks, the one that happened in September and October, it's just 1 month, you know, in between. And it seems jailbreaks are becoming a norm in Nigeria. What could be responsible for this?
Well, thank you very much. It's quite unfortunate that we are having this spate of attacks, you know, on our facility. I think the starting point should be to establish the difference between jailbreak as a result of internal insurrection amongst the inmates, which could be attributed to either poor management of the facility by the handlers or something that has to do with dissatisfaction amongst the inmates. But what we have been having of recent is more of hoodlums coming to invade custodial facilities with military-grade weapons. It has never been envisaged, you know, right from time that there will be a time in history that, or a time that hoodlums will come and invade facilities, you know, heavily armed, you know, for whatever reason. The system has been able to checkmate, you know, management of the facility to such an extent that we now celebrate progress being made in different fronts as far as inmates' welfare is concerned, including their psychosocial needs. We are celebrating inmates registering for university education. Just a couple of days back, 11 also matriculated, and it's sundry vocations that we train them on. So you will observe that what we are primed to do is to, one, ensure that inmates are given humane custody; two, to ensure that their care, their future is taken into consideration; three, to ensure that their medical needs are attended to. And this we have been doing consistently. Unfortunately, what we are seeing now is a product of the general insecurity that is sweeping across the country, which we are not sleeping over. Things are being done to ensure that this ugly trend is addressed. If you permit me, I want to quickly say what we as a service has been doing in response to the unfortunate development. Number one, we for those that are on the run, I can assure you we are going to hunt them to the last man standing. I can assure you that, because we have what it takes to go after them. Proactively, we're able to harvest their data, and in working in synergy with National Identity Management Commission, we have harvested their biometrics, where we are liaising with the Interpol to ensure that those that want to smuggle themselves out of the country do not have the means of doing that, and those that will carry out a transaction, they will be picked. That I can assure you. To ensure that it doesn't happen again, we are increasing physical presence of our men on ground. Of course, we are expanding the frontiers of our synergy with other sister agencies to increase men on ground, and we are going, want to introduce technology-driven custodial management. So these are a couple of things that we are trying to put in place, and practically we are trying to reclaim our buffer areas. Buffer area, what buffer area does is it enables men on ground to assess and profile whoever crosses into the red zone and is approaching the facility. As it is now, men on guard, what separates them from the civil populace is just the wall. But when we have double perimeter fence, the armed men on guard, they are the back of the second fence. And between the first and second fence, you have area we call buffer zone, red zone, which of course the Minister of Interior, Ralph Aregbesola, has already declared to be no-go area. So by the time we succeed in establishing these red zones and buffer areas, then we'll be able to adequately handle whoever is coming in.
Okay, now the federal government has inaugurated a vulnerability audit of the Nigerian Correctional Service custodial centers across the whole country. Is this actually a solution?
Yes, it is. Because it enables you to, permit me to say that not all information pertaining to this question you just asked, I want to divulge for very obvious reasons. Okay. But it's sufficient to say that it will enable us to re-strategize to address the situation. In fact, it has a lot of advantages that we are going to leverage to address the issue. Please, just let me reserve the others for obvious reasons.
That's totally fine. Many would say these kind of attacks don't happen for just cause. There has to be some internal intelligence, for these kind of attacks to happen. Is the service doing anything, to checkmate, some of these things happening within the facility?
Yes. Number one, it has to do partially with the question or surrounding reassessing vulnerability profile of our custodial centers, number one. Then number two, I did mention that we are looking at running a technology-driven custodial management. It has to do with that. And again, communication. We are also doing a lot to ensure that we manage communication within. A lot is involved, but let me leave it at that. But outside the facilities, I did mention also that we are expanding the frontiers of our collaboration with sister organization. That's to say that agencies that will be assisting us with intelligence to enable us nip some of these ugly incidences in the board. We are also expanding our collaboration with them, and essentially, we have recently embarked on deliberate campaign and appeal to members of the public. Because these hoodlums, they are human beings. They are not some funny creatures from outside space. They live among us. They congregate. They giles. They share intelligence. They procure, logistics. So when these clandestine moves are going on, there is no way people will not suspect movements that are unusual. So our appeal is that whoever sees anything should say something, pass intelligence timely to security operatives, so that some of these attacks can be nipped in the bud.
Now, if I'm correct, some of these inmates were actually rearrested mostly in rural areas, and considering in most rural areas technology is zero there. So how do you expect those who live in such communities to have an idea of who these inmates are living around them?
Yes, wherever you live, these like I said, these hoodlums, they are human beings that live among us. Whether you are in a rural area or in an urban environment, if you are carrying out clandestine activities to this magnitude, I tell you, these invaders, they come to our custodial centers with military-grade weapons. They don't come with a pistol or the common AK-47 that some of these people brandish. So for you to move these heavy equipment, there is no way you will not be involved in something that is shady. And I don't know of any, no matter how remote it is, where we don't have a kind of organized system of administration. It could be through the village or community head, who will have a link to one security operative or the other. You just pass the information. There are two strange faces I see around. I'm not suspecting them, but the movements are not very clear to me. Could you get a check? And that's how you bust their moves. So this is the message we are trying to pass across.
Okay, now the correctional service, is bestowed with the aim of, rehabilitating some of these inmates, in order to reintegrate them back into society better. But, well, some have said this is not really happening. We don't get to see that much happening in the Nigerian correctional service. Is the service doing anything in that regard?
Yeah. You recall that when we started this conversation, I did mention that just 2 days ago, 11 inmates in Ogun State matriculated to this National Open University of Nigeria. Presently, we have close to 3,000 inmates that are running different courses in the tertiary institution, including colleges of education and all of that. In 2018, for the very first time, the Nigerian Correctional Service won an award, an international award, UNESCO. When that award came, a lot of people were saying, well, how is it possible? Anybody that knows UNESCO will know that it's an organization you cannot bribe, you cannot influence. They do their independent observation, classification and assessment. And you also recall that Mr. President, mentioned very correctly that Nigerian Correctional Service, in its independent broadcast, that Nigerian Correctional Service has now been primed to deliver on its mandate.
That's good news.
Yes. So we are doing a lot, and I told you that. But for this recent unfortunate invasion of our facility by hoodlums, which to some extent is, a little beyond our immediate control, because nobody ever said it. It was good news that the Nigerian Correctional Service was consistently celebrating. Are you talking about infrastructural intervention? Are you talking about inmates skill development in sundry vocations? Because that UNESCO prize of 2018, it was based on the uniqueness in our rehabilitation program, because we were able to combine skill development with educational pursuit. Because we realized that inmates that are serving term, they are already at a disadvantage by virtue of the fact that they have been convicted. And when no matter the level of education you give to them or the level of skill you give to them, when they go back to the society, they are going to the already congested labor market.
Right.
And coming with a certificate, do I call certificate in quote, that says you are an ex-convict, which has already kept you at a disadvantage. So we just felt that if you combine the two, education and vocation, the man that is living will not necessarily go and start looking for job. Rather, he will be an employer. And that's what we have been doing consistently. I tell you, most of the convicted inmates that leave our custody, they have education and they have skill. And there is none, I tell you, there is none that will say he has less than 2 viable skills. They have their trade test certificate, but we don't celebrate paper qualification. We celebrate what they are capable of doing for themselves and doing for the society. That's the trajectory.
There's this one that has been bothering me, and it's I actually want to know what the major problems facing our correctional facilities are.
Thank you very much. I think that's a question I've been waiting to hear, and I'll be too glad to answer. If you ask any correctional officer today, even if you wake the person up midnight, the first thing they wake up to shout is congestion, overcrowding of our custodial center. And when we say congestion, it is important that we understand the dynamics. We have on the whole, the aggregate space we have for inmates in Nigeria is a little above 55,000. But presently we have the number of our inmates oscillating between 68, 69, sometimes 70,000. That is not even the point. The point is, amongst these inmates, those that are awaiting trial, that is the pre-trial detainees, that's where we have the issue. This is why in almost all our engagement, our conversations, what we plead is subnational should come to our rescue. I mean state governments. Because most of over 90% of the inmates in this category committed state offenses. So expectedly, it is the state legal instrument that will be deployed to address the problem. If you look at these areas that have been so violently attacked, the awaiting trial population is always between 70 to even 90% amongst the inmates. So that is the major problem we are facing. There are some of our facilities that are locking below installed capacity.
Okay.
We cannot reduce where we have excess inmates to those locations because those inmates there are still waiting for their cases to be finally tried.
So would you connect this to the slow pace, of the justice system in Nigeria?
Absolutely. That's what the problem is. Now, there's a question you asked earlier on the level of rehabilitation and the fact that some Nigerians will say they are not seeing much of it.
Right.
Now, the question you first that I will suggest whoever is assessing our facility based on the level of reformation and rehabilitation is whoever leaves the custodial facility and goes back to crime, find out from that person what was his or her status when he was in custody. Was he there as a convict or as an awaiting trial? If the person was there as an awaiting trial and spent 20 years awaiting trial, or depending on the type of crime that took him there, all we owe him is feeding and accommodation.
Wow.
It has nothing to do with rehabilitation, training, vocational exposure, and all of that. Sometimes we go out of our way to even engage some of the inmates that are awaiting trial in vocational training, education, and all of that. The reason is, number one, to ensure that you engage them actively to reduce the tendency to want to escape, to cause trouble, to fight in the yard, just to break that idleness. But if the person is depending on the type of crime that took the person there, you may not want to take him out and take him to a workshop, so that you don't go and pollute others that are doing something meaningful.
Okay.
So if the person stayed there all this while as an awaiting trial and there was no opportunity for the person to learn any trade and the person leaves, throughout the period he was there, he was just there vegetating.
Right.
So the major problem is, let us have the percentage now, the ratio of close to 70 and above percent as awaiting trial. Let us have that same percent now reverse to convicted inmates, and then you see what we'll be able to do with them in terms of training and rehabilitation. Okay,
so what about gang-related activities within the facilities? How do you manage them?
Oh well, I tell you, we have, the system has adequately managed the relationship amongst our inmates that we don't have any gang issue at all.
Wow.
It's not in fact, you made a sorry, I don't know, I think you were the person that made reference to Benin issue. The Benin issue wasn't an attempted it wasn't. I wouldn't rate it, or the system did not rate it as an attempted jailbreak, because it was not an attempted jailbreak. What happened was that there was during the NSAS, a group of inmates that escaped awaiting trial.
Okay.
They were, I told you that we are picking them one after the other. So those of them that were rearrested and brought back, there was this quarrel between them and the convicted inmate. It has always been. The convicted inmates were angry that they brought undue pressure on them. Why would they want to live unjustly and not face their case as they are serving their own JT? You are just coming, you committed an offense, instead of going to court and coming to serve your term as we are doing, you are making an attempt to escape. So that was the quarrel that happened between the two groups, and the men on ground, came immediately to address the issue. I think why people were relating it with the attended jailbreak was the sound of gunshot they heard, which was deliberately done outside the precinct of the prison to ensure that hoodlums that will hear shouting will not come again to cash in, on the opportunity. Okay. So I think that was what happened. Now,
I'm really keen, on providing psychosocial support, because some of these criminals, some will say, well, some of them are mentally derailed. Mm-hmm. Is it the duty of the service, to provide that, or who is supposed to do that?
Yeah, of course, any inmate that is brought into our custody becomes the property of the government. Mm. So by virtue of the fact that they are kept in our custody, it becomes our responsibility to ensure that their care and support is necessary care and support is provided. We have a retinue of psychologists, that do that as an inmate. If you are coming in as an inmate, the first thing we do is to profile you, to understand your medically, and even skill-wise, we want to know where you can fit in. So if they discover, we have a number of instruments, that they administer on you to be able to know where you belong. If after administering the instrument they know you have some psychosocial issue, they will have professionals that will take over and begin to manage such. Where it goes beyond our, I wouldn't want to use the word mental illness. If it goes beyond our immediate capacity, we get support from federal government, institutions, to address such issues.
Okay, now we actually know that a right to bail can sometimes embolden inmates or criminals to, go back and, commit more crimes. How do you handle repeat offenders?
Yes, when you are dealing with a group of human beings, you may not score 100% in rehabilitating every maladjusted individual, brought under your custody. What we do is when an inmate is processed through the machinery of rehabilitation, either in sundry vocation, in education, and all of that, as you are living, we have what we call Aftercare Scheme. The Aftercare Scheme is designed to give a trained inmate in any skill what we call startup tools. Okay. If you learn hairdressing, barbing, tailoring, whatever, we procure the necessary tools for that particular inmate, and then aftercare officers who will not be in uniform will first of all ask the inmate where he or she wants to reside. Once that is established, we send people there to meet the community leader, youth leaders, talk to them, sensitize them that so and so person is coming to stay in your community. In fact, we go to the community leader to enable them understand who is coming into their midst, and then support the person to stay, in the community. Then we gradually ease the person into that environment, and the aftercare officer will follow for a period of 6 months. We'll be doing regular monitoring to see the level of reintegration. Where there's a relapse, we are not going to arrest the person because we don't have the power to arrest, but we will now make a beeline to the community leader or to relevant agency that, look, this person is relapsing, then they take it up from there. But to a very large extent, amongst those that were convicted and trained in sundry vocations, we are having very encouraging results as per reintegration without relapsing to crime.
Okay, now many would agree that we don't get to see much of activities happening, in correctional services in the media. And this attributes to the fact that journalists or the media don't really have access to these facilities. Is it because of security reasons, or there's a reason why we don't get to see much?
Well, I don't know if I will agree with that assertion, because number one, this is a media trust. I know we have a desk. Mr. Joshua works with you. He was until he was made an editor or a sub-editor. I don't know his ranking now. He was our desk, and he covers our activities, every now and then. All the platforms, both social media platform and all of that, they have access to our facilities. The much that security we allow, the more security we allow, in the sense that we have some facilities where we have high profile individuals. If a journalist comes to us to say, I want to see A and B, and if they are high profile image, we may not grant you access. Like the image that just matriculated, the journalists went there, they covered the ceremony. So when we are giving startup tools, they are always around. So our doors are open to the media to cover our activities.
Because we want to see more, of stories like this coming up.
All right, but just before we wrap up, can you tell us the difference between minimum, medium, and maximum facility?
That is basically on the facilities classified based on the strength of the facilities, the caliber of images being kept.
Okay, with that, we'll wrap up this discussion on Jailbreak. Thank you so much, Francis and Enobore, for gracing us with your presence.
Yes, thank
Hope
you
to
so
have
much.
you some other time.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.